Chapter 1. The Introduction. In a quiet corner of Maplewood, nestled between towering evergreens and the languid sweep of the river, the Seamans family home stood as an unassuming monument of suburban normalcy. The dull gray shutters hung heavy, framing windows that often gazed vacantly into the world beyond, reflecting a place that had long forgotten the vibrance of laughter and warmth. But behind those walls lay an unsettling stillness, an unease that whispered of untold stories. It was November 17, 2018, when the tranquility of Sunday afternoon was shattered. Neighbors gossiped over coffee, noting the peculiar absence of the Seamans, a family known for their predictable routines and Sunday night barbecues. But today, the inviting aroma of grilled steak and the faint hum of laughter were conspicuous by their absence. As twilight descended, and with it, a chill in the air, curiosity transformed into concern. By dusk, the absence of activity aroused the attention of the local authorities. It began as a welfare check, an innocuous visit to confirm the well-being of a seemingly ordinary family. Officers knocked on the door, their footsteps echoing against the silence that enveloped the house. No response. Tension grew palpable in the air, thickening as they peered through the glass panes, searching for any signs of life within. It was a decision driven by instinct, the kind that haunts seasoned officers even in the calmest neighborhoods. They pried open the door, and what lay beyond would unravel a web of secrets, suspicion, and tragedy tale that would echo long past the walls of that suburban home. Chapter 2. The Victim. In the days that followed, the name Seamans painted a portrait of stark reality for the residents of Maplewood. Anything but typical. At the center of it all was 42-year-old Lydia Seamans, a community organizer known for her tireless advocacy for local environmental causes. Beneath her warm smile and enthusiastic demeanor lay a complexity unseen by those who merely viewed her from the outside. Lydia was beloved, a mother and wife wrapped in layers of responsibility and ambition. She spent her weekends volunteering at the community garden, instilling in her children a sense of duty to both nature and each other. Her 3 children, 14-year-old Mia, 11-year-old Tommy, and 8-year-old Claire, were often seen trailing closely behind her, their laughter punctuating the air like musical notes. She was the very essence of maternal pride, but whispers soon emerged around town, rumors of growing tensions within the family, marital strife simmering beneath the surface. Friends recalled vague mentions of disagreements with her husband, Mark Seamans, a man nearly 10 years her senior, whose own life had seemingly stagnated in contrast to Lydia's vibrant pursuits. He had long since exchanged his dreams for a steady job at the local bank, leaving him ensnared in a life that lacked excitement. Life at home was complicated. Worries of finances and responsibilities had a way of creeping into the seams of everyday existence. Lydia's outspoken nature often led her into local debates, which not everyone appreciated. As loved ones struggled to reconcile the Lydia they knew with the troubling circumstances surrounding her disappearance, their good intentions couldn't shield them from looming shadows that had surrounded her without their notice. Chapter 3. The Crime Scene. As the officers crossed the threshold of the Seamans' home, they were met with an unsettling tableau. The once inviting living room had morphed into a scene of chaos. An errant lamp lay toppled over, its lampshade askew, casting skewed shadows against the dull beige walls. A blanket was crumpled on the sofa, remnants of the family's last shared moment visible in the stray toys and shoes, scattered haphazardly across the floor. Their senses heightened, the officers' breaths caught in their throats as they moved cautiously through the narrow hallway. The grim reality of an impending discovery overshadowed their insight. Right there, at the end of the corridor, the door to the Seamans' bedroom stood slightly ajar, as if beckoning them closer. Shh. They exchanged tense glances, the gravity of the situation thickening the air with an almost suffocating weight. Pushing the door wider, they were met with a scene that would be etched in their minds forever. The room bore the unsettling mark of violence. Shattered vase lay strewn across the carpet, its crystalline shards echoing stories of anguish. The sheets were twisted and disheveled, and on the floor, in the far corner, lay Lydia, unresponsive and motionless, a fact bearing the weight of untold anguish. The initial examination revealed no obvious signs of struggle. Instead, the room held an eerie stillness, as if the air itself was reluctant to breathe. Corpses tell tales in the quietest of ways, and the officers could feel the lines of Lydia's life unraveling before their eyes. As they began to document the scene, they noticed a faint smell of vanilla, stark contrast to the somber atmosphere emanating from a burning candle on the bedside table. Its light flickered in the thickening gloom, whispering of life interrupted too soon. Chapter 4. The Early Investigation. The immediate aftermath of the discovery plunged the Maplewood community into disbelief. As news of Lydia Seamans' untimely death rippled through suburban streets, investigators scrambled to piece together the fragmented puzzle of her life. Detectives Sarah Lombard and David Everett, seasoned by years of experience, quickly set up a command post in the Seamans' living room, where the remnants of family life mingled disturbingly with tragedy. Preliminary interviews with neighbors presented a muddled picture. While many recounted their fondness for Lydia's spirited engagements, others hesitated, connecting the dots of whispered tensions between Lydia and Mark. The couple had their fair share of disputes. Some admitted candidly, but none would have thought such disagreements could culminate in Fiz's murder cast a long shadow, transforming memories into suspicion. As the detectives rifled through Lydia's belongings, they found remnants of her passion, pamphlets from environmental campaigns, half-finished articles about local preservation efforts, and journals filled with handwritten notes, the contours of a life rich with ideals now marred by a violent end. They seized her phone, diving deep into messages and social media interactions that could hint at threats or conflicts. A troubling pattern emerged through their investigation. Lydia had been receiving anonymous messages in the weeks leading up to her death. The content was vague, but tinged with malice, a faint echo of someone unhappy with her push for stringent local regulations on land use. They wondered if her unyielding spirit had stirred the pot far more than she had anticipated. As they pored over records, a familiar phrase sprang from the page's ruffled feathers. It was a phrase that mapped out her conflicts, foreshadowing the storm that ultimately took her life. Tension thickened as their gaze shifted toward Mark, who, while presenting as a concerned husband at first, embodied complexities deserving further scrutiny. Chapter 5. The Dead Ends. As the days turned into weeks, the investigation began to take on a disheartening rhythm, running into a series of dead ends that frayed the detective's patience. The initial excitement surrounding the case lent way to the grueling reality of chasing down leads that often dissipated as quickly as they materialized. Interviews with Mark revealed little to neither hint nor alibi. His grief appeared genuine, but there was an edge to his responses. Some details were too rehearsed, and his body language betrayed a subtle fidgeting under the gaze of question. Reticent and almost robotic, Mark often leaned on pleasantries while avoiding direct answers, his narrative shifting like shadows in the fading light. Neighbors had their suspicions, but were fearful of befouling the memory of a beloved local figure. Most recalls painted a rosy picture, and yet remnants of doubt gnawed at their collective memory, suggesting a hidden darkness that lurked beneath the surface. A tip came through about a fellow community activist, someone known for vigorous opposition to Lydia's campaign. Her name was Clara Winters, a well-regarded figure in Maplewood's local environmental groups, whose passion often clashed with Lydia's fervent ideals. The two had been locked in a noticeable rivalry over proposals for a new park redevelopment that would alter the landscape irrevocably. Yet, what began as professional competition bore an unsettling tinge. Confrontations exchanged, vague threats uttered among the whispers of their peers. When detectives sought out Clara, they found her evasive, her outward charm instantly masking an internal cyclone of blame. I didn't agree with her methods, but I would never wish her harm, she insisted, her eyes darting, betraying her nerve. They left uneasy, weighed by doubts that lingered thick in the air. Clara had proven more than a lead. She was a reflection of the complexities surrounding Lydia's demise. Yet the thread grew taut and tangled. Chapter 6. A break in the case. Weeks bordered on months, and the once bustling Maplewood began to adjust to a haunting stillness. A community waiting in limbo for answers that remained just beyond reach. But on a drizzly Wednesday morning, the shroud of despair began to lift as a break in the case emerged, igniting renewed hopes for resolution. Detective Sarah Lombard meticulously reviewed security footage from around the neighborhood, combing through endless hours of grainy video. Her determination bore fruit when a grainy clip finally caught her eye around the time of Lydia's last known activities. A figure in a dark hoodie walked along the outskirts of the Seamans property. The figure lingered with an air of familiarity, a lingering tension evident even from the small screen. Lombard contacted the technology unit to enhance the footage, and within moments of analysis, they flagged the individual, a local handyman known for completing odd jobs for various residents. He had been at the Seamans' home a week before Lydia's death, engaged to fix a leaky faucet. Feeling a chill race down her spine, Lombard cross-referenced a police report detailing the handyman's prior disputes with Lydia over pay. Those interactions had escalated into heated arguments, and the picture began to shift. This individual had motive. Arranging for a meeting, detectives confronted him at the service garage where he worked, the ambience tense with potential conflict. With adherence to due diligence, they posed questions that tested his alibi, quickly unraveling a narrative punctuated by frustration and anger. The handyman vacillated between defensiveness and self-victimization, exposing chinks in his armor. As his tale unspooled, he mentioned a late-night encounter with Lydia, an exchange that had devolved into a shouting match just days before her death. For the first time, a sense of clarity flickered in the investigators' minds. They were stepping into the murky depths of a life carved out by tension and unresolved fury, inching closer to the truth. Chapter 7. The suspect led to revelation as the handyman, Aaron Graves, sat at the station's interrogation table, wedged between a flickering fluorescent light and the stifling tension of pending judgment. Detective Lombard's questioning turned relentless, her voice honed with authority as she outlined the timeline and connections between him and Lydia. Aaron fidgeted, his gaze darting from the one-way mirror to the detectives across from him. Initially defensive, he denied any wrongdoing, but cracks began to form as the conversation deepened. "I just wanted to get paid for the work I did," he stammered, his voice quivering under pressure. She was being unreasonable. As seconds turned into minutes, Lombard's tactics shifted from accusatory to coaxing. She laid out the evidence, a detailed timeline of interactions, secured camera footage, and witness accounts of the argument that just preceded Lydia's death. The evidence loomed overhead, suffocating him with its significance. When Lombard pressed about the night Lydia was killed, Aaron's resolve faltered. He hesitated, then recalled details that seemed rehearsed but crumbled under scrutiny. I didn't see her that night. I was home. Alone." But as the detectives pressed further, doubt loomed heavily in the air, and Aaron's nervousness transitioned into an erratic fluster. A single slip-up, small detail about the lingering scent of vanilla he described associated with that evening betrayed his alibi. "I just remembered a candle she had lit when I went there." His mind reached for a lifeline, but the strands of truth tightened around him, binding him in his inconsistencies. As days passed, a sense of inevitability crept in. The pieces of the investigation pointed resolutely toward Aaron, an avowed liar cloaked in indignation, but unable to escape the repercussions of that conflict with Lydia. Lombard's voice pierced through his faltering bravado, laying the foundation for the case that was about to cement him as the central figure in a tragedy that had left a community in turmoil. Chapter 8. The trial began. The air in the Maplewood courthouse crackled with a mix of anticipation and trepidation. The courtroom, typically a realm for mundane proceedings, had transformed into a theater of raw emotion, drawing specters of the Seamans tragedy into the daily lives of citizens. News vans lined the street outside, their reporters delivering updates to a captivated audience. Community's collective breath held in a state of uncertain suspense. The prosecution, led by the formidable district attorney, laid a meticulous case against Aaron Graves, drawing upon the evidence gathered during the investigation. They presented the timeline of interactions, the security footage that had captured his movements, and dissected the bitter argument he shared with Lydia that fateful night. Each witness was a brick in the wall of a narrative that sought to pin the tragic moment back to a man seemingly unfazed by the gravity of his action. Aaron, dressed in an ill-fitting suit that did little to conceal his nervous disposition, sat before the jury, eyes dull, shoulders slouched. The defense, grasping for straws, offered a narrative of reasonable doubt, claiming Lydia was a conflicted woman, embroiled in a flurry of local activism that could have put her at risk. They painted Aaron as a scapegoat, a hard-working individual maligned by circumstance. However, as testimonies flowed, the prosecution's case thickened, painting Aaron not only as an unreliable worker, but potentially volatile, highlighting his unresolved anger stemming from financial disputes. The prosecution brought in forensic experts who discussed the findings from the crime scene, evidence of struggle and the lingering scent of vanilla, tying the crime to the chaotic emotions of the argument that had escalated too far. Each revelation laid bare the reality of fractured lives, inflicting open wounds on witnesses who grieved with each word. As the trial progressed, the lines between justice and retribution blurred, revealing a community grappling with pain and seeking catharsis. The jury was tasked with not just delivering a verdict, but with dissipating the heavy fog of anger and innocence that spanned Maplewood. Each individual left to confront the question of culpability in this heartbreaking tale. Chapter 9. The Aftermath. The courtroom, once a battleground for divided truth, fell silent as the jury delivered their verdict. Guilty. The word echoed through the chambers, shattering the pervasive tension with a crisp finality. The decision punctured the facade of calm that enveloped Maplewood, a community forced to reckon with the aftermath of tragedy. A home once filled with laughter was now stained by loss. In the weeks following the trial, a palpable change swept through the town. The Seamans house once alive with activities sat vacant, shunned by memories, both bitter and sweet. The neighbors watched the creeping vines clawing at the windows, mirroring their own unresolved grief. For Lydia's children, life shifted into a new and uncertain reality, forever marked by the violence that had intruded upon their childhood. Support for Mia, Tommy, and Claire came from every corner of their neighborhood. And neighbors and friends rallied to provide comfort and stability. Community meetings transformed into support groups, and the grassroots compassion that Lydia had spent years cultivating surged back to life, all aimed at nurturing the vulnerable trio left bereft. Detective Lombard found herself reflecting on the troubling nuances of justice. The court may have delivered a sentence, but the scars would linger, emotions entwined in a complex tapestry of guilt, grief, and lingering question. She pondered Lydia's legacy, a fierce advocate who had galvanized local activism, now left as an echo, a reminder of fragility in the fabric of life. As the seasons changed, so too did Maplewood. The leaves that had once painted streets in autumnal hues eventually fell, making way for fresh blooms in the spring. Yet the scars of Lydia's loss remained, woven into the community's narrative and fortified by a newfound resolve to embrace vigilance, love, and understanding. The ghosts of grief lingered, but so did hope, a testament to Lydia's enduring spirit, pushing through the darkness, like spring flowers breaking through winter's frost, serving as a reminder that even in the face of tragedy, life finds a way to hold on. Chapter 10. Reflection. Months after the trial concluded, Maplewood had settled into a rhythm, a town learning to breathe again amid the echoes of a tragedy that had nearly suffocated it. Detective Sarah Lombard often wandered through its streets, seeking solace in the familiar sights of her childhood. Yet, every corner carried echoes of the Seamans story, a reminder that life is both fragile and beautiful, entwining joy and sorrow in a delicate dance. One particularly overcast evening, Lombard found herself at the community garden where Lydia had nurtured relationships and blooms alike. It had become a sanctuary, each flower a symbol of resilience, a vibrant testament to the life that had once thrived there. The neighbors had thrown themselves into revitalizing the space, transforming it from a backdrop of grief into a memorial for Lydia, a place where her spirit continued to inspire action for the environment she had passionately fought for. As Lombard knelt among the petals, she reflected on the intricate threads of human connection that had unraveled during the investigation. Lydia's death had altered the fabric of community life, acting as both a catalyst for healing and a reminder of the importance of vigilance in a world often taken for granted. With every bloom, she felt a renewed commitment to the work ahead, not merely as a detective, but as a force for change, honoring the memory of a life lost too soon. In a world clouded by darkness, Lombard resolved to be a beacon of light for the battles others continued to face, whispering into the tapestry of Maplewood that even in sorrow, hope blossoms anew.